Uncharted, Drake's Fortune. The funny thing about this game is that you probably haven't really heard about it much, or probably haven't even played it, and yet you've heard a lot, or have played its sequels, Uncharted 2 and Uncharted 3, which were really good. You know, it's like off the charts, everyone's always praising them and things like that. For the record, I haven't played them. I figured because I'm an anal asshole about chronology that I wanted to play the first one before I got to play the second and third ones. But after I played it, just for the, just for putting it out there, you really kind of don't need to play this one if you want to play the second one or third one. This came out pretty much when the PlayStation 3 came out. Like, I remember when I was playing the PlayStation 3 demos in stores, they were displaying Uncharted 2. So I was like, oh, I wonder what happened to Uncharted 1. It's kind of like, GTA 3 and Fallout 3. You can't really remember, like, Fallout 2 or 1 or GTA 1 or 2 unless you really played video games a lot. The first thing that I noticed about this game was that the graphics are really nice, but, like, really nice. And the voice acting is probably, like, in my book, like, the top 5. It's pretty. It's like one of the best voice acting I've heard and seen in like a video game, and like the models, they interact well with what's going on. It's not awkward. In other words, it flows naturally. It's really like watching a movie. So that was really good, and that was really entertaining. And even like the dialogue, even though it could be kind of like corny and predictable at times, it's still really played out well, and it's really enjoyable to sit back and watch. The gameplay, it's, your typical, it's kind of like Tomb Raider. You jump on walls, you crawl, you have your guns, your shotguns and your machine guns, you shoot stuff, you target them and things like that. There's nothing really that groundbreaking there. As for the story, your main character, you play as Nathan Drake, displayed here on the cover, and he is the current day descendant of Francis Drake, who is the famous historical explorer, blah blah blah. So, it starts out with Nathan Drake trying to find out what happened to Francis Drake, and eventually he gets caught up in some El Dorado myth, which I won't get into because if you really want to play it, there's a kind of, it gives a good twist on the El Dorado legend. Let's put it that way. And it didn't really hit me until right after I finished this, and I was like, wow, all the protagonists in this game are white. You have Nathan Drake, your typical young, fit, white guy adventurer, and then who gets involved with like a pretty cute white girl with blonde hair, and then his partner is like an old white guy who's like, it's just like white people everywhere, and then all the bad guys, for like 99.9% of the entire game, you're going to be fighting black people, which is kind of funny, because Nathan, he has like a shady kind of traitorous friend named Eddie, who hires all these Somalian pirates, I guess, and obviously he wants to go after the treasure himself, so he hires all these Somalian pirates, and they just pop out everywhere. It's just fucking, it's like Uncharted. Nathan Drake fighting black people. That's kind of like the whole fucking game. You're just gonna fight black people the entire time. And the thing is that they pop out of nowhere. Like, you could be in the middle of like a fucking dungeon in like South America that no one has been in like 500 years, and it's like, oh, they're fucking here. Like, you just turn around the corner and they start shooting you, and you're like, where did you come from? Why are you here? Why? And I just find it funny. I was like, oh, this is kind of like, it's trying to be like Raiders of the Lost Ark, but it's still kind of, Raiders of the Lost Ark put a pretty high mark on, pretty high standard on the adventure genre, and this was kind of like, once you play it, it's like, that was fun. I mean, the hard mode is challenging. I like to play all my games on hard mode, and there were a lot of good moments. It's fun to play through, but it's like I said, it's like, at most I'd give it like, 7 out of 10 or 8 out of 10, maybe 7.5. It's something I wouldn't really go back to. The only reason I would go back to it is because I paused in between the game and I didn't go back to it for like almost a year, and then I picked it up again and I was like, oh, I guess I'll play this again, see where it goes and stuff like that. And it doesn't have that much of a complex story that you have to constantly be aware of what's going on. You can figure it out. It's like, oh yeah, they're going after their treasure too. Okay, let's go do this. I noticed that they try to change up some gameplay in the middle, because you know how sometimes in the game they try to switch things up. For example, one example that comes to mind is Final Fantasy VII, an RPG game. But then there's a moment where you're riding a motorcycle and you're killing guys, and it switches up the gameplay. It's like, oh, instead of doing this for like 5 hours, let's do this for like a few minutes or something, just to like break the monotony. And it tries to do that like with some scenes. You're on a boat and you're on a raft, and that was fun and stuff. And then there was one scene that was kind of pointless in my opinion, because you're being chased after these guys and it gives you the option of shooting behind you while you're running. Don't do that. It's totally pointless. All you just do is run, and the whole sequence ends for like 5 seconds. So I was like, oh, there was no point to that at all. Another thing, I don't want to, spoil it or anything, but the whole time I was wondering, so is this like a realistic adventure game? Or is something weird gonna happen? Is there gonna be like monsters or like zombies or anything like that? But you get an answer at the end about what happens. But yeah, that's it. Just my thoughts on Uncharted, Drake's Fortune. Should otherwise be known as Uncharted, white male adventurer searching for a white man's treasure.